Hi everyone, thank you for joining me. Today I'm taking an oversized stamp and creating 2 mini slimline cards. You have to love it when you get 2 for 1. I'm working with a gorgeous stamp by Simon Says Stamp called Orchid Rose Bouquet. And this is a big stamp that barely fit in my Tim Holtz stamping platform. To help easily get pressure across the stamp, I'm using a stamping tool. If you are not familiar with one of these, they are well worth the investment at a fairly decent price. The felt base glides across the stamping tool and it really takes a lot of pressure off your hands. I'm going to be embossing this image with Ink on 3's Gold Rush embossing powder. The floral has been stamped on Bristol Smooth cardstock that measures 6.5 inches square. Just a reminder that if any of the products that I'm using today grabs your attention, you can find links in the description of this YouTube video or on my blog at bonniecarolee.com. To minimize warping, I do a couple of things. Firstly, I make sure that my heat tool has come to its maximum temperature before the heat is applied to the panel. And secondly, I heat both the front and periodically the back of it. There's a lot of embossing powder to melt. Every now and again, I will tip my panel up towards the light to check to see if the area that I'm working on is shiny. If there are any matte bits, then I reapply the heat. I'm going to create 2 panels out of this one large one using Simon Says Stamp's mini slimline rectangles. I will only be using the second largest die from this set to die cut my panels. I am playing around with the 2 larger dies just for planning purposes. For me, it works better to use the dies to plan where I'm going to make my cuts. I can visually see what the panel is going to look like. I'm pretty sure that if I just tried to use my guillotine and cut up the panel, that I would probably end up with just one. Using the die as a frame really gave me a good idea of what that panel was going to look like. I'm going to do some full watercoloring using my Zig markers. I chose to stamp my image on Bristol Smooth cardstock because it can withstand a small amount of water without pilling. Although I'm using Zigs, any of the water-based markers work well on this paper. You are able to create a gradient giving that full watercolor look. I prefer to use an actual watercolor brush, but a watercolor pen works equally as well. Whether I'm working with the leaves or the petals on the flowers, I just simply put the color down at the base of them and then use my brush with clean water to pull that color up to create that gradient. This is extremely easy to do, and I often work on multiple petals or leaves at a time. Every once in a while, I'll put the panels together just so that I can make sure that the petal that I'm working on is going with the correct flower. For this panel, the roses are done in a pale rose color, and the orchids will be done with a combination of purple and red. The red is focused on the center of this orchid, and the purple is used on the outer leaves. When the petals are painted, I will go back and add just a little bit of that purple to the center area that is red, just to make it a little bit more cohesive. Just like watercoloring, the water-based markers can be used to layer on color. They are pretty forgiving. If you want to increase the intensity of the shadow area, you just simply add in more of the color and pull it out slightly. You can also make adjustments to your highlight areas as well by adding in just some plain clean water and taking some paper towel and lifting that color off. Working with the embossed lines really creates a safety net. The embossing creates barriers and keeps that paint exactly where you want it. If you are intimidated by watercoloring but love the look, this is a great method for beginners. I could have chosen to paint my entire panel at once and then do the die cutting, but I wanted two distinct color schemes. The orchids on this panel are smaller. I'm working with a combination of pink and yellow. That will give me some peach undertones. The roses are yellow. I'm using a combination of a bright yellow and a lemon yellow. For the leaves, I used marine green. This is my favorite green tone for foliage. In fact, after I was done, I went back to the other panel and redid the leaves in this same color. I just love the richness of this blue-green. I think it looks amazing with the gold embossing. There's nothing like a black background to create instant drama. And as I learned fairly recently, there is nothing that makes a better black background than a Copic 100 marker. It is solid and you do not see any marker lines. For the sentiment, I'm using Simon Says Stamp's Miss You die set. It has been die cut 3 times for each card out of black cardstock, matte gold cardstock, and black foam. This is a really cute die that produces the outline and the words. I'm going to use the matte gold outline die cut and stack it on the foam one. The black cardstock words are then inlaid in the gold outline. Panels were mounted on black sheet foam and left to dry under some weight before being trimmed. They were then matted on the same gold cardstock that was used for the sentiment outline. I ended up switching out the card base size to 3 3/8 by 6.5 inches. After the sentiments are adhered, gold confetti is used to embellish the panel. They are finished off with Nouveau Crystal Drops Morning Dew, creating a beautiful jewel-like effect. The little die cut for the center of the O got lost in the shuffle, so of course I had to redo that, and then we were done. And that wraps up this pair of mini slimline cards featuring Simon Says Stamp's Orchid Rose Bouquet. You can certainly get a lot of mileage out of your oversized stamps with a little bit of planning. And finish them up with some faux watercoloring, and it doesn't get any easier than that. I hope you enjoyed today's video, and as always, I appreciate your visit.